Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we are studying Daf Memches of Masechta Ayruvin, Daf 48. Yeah, I switched the recording space to upstairs. This is kind of like the room I grew up in, sort of. Now I'm chilling in the basement. That's where I'm hanging out. I got like my own space there and I'm working there, and that's where I am, in the basement. That's where I've been recording, but there were a few things going on in the basement now, so I came up to my old room. But Lemaisa, this is probably a much better place to record. I mean, the basement's kind of, just like a white wall. I mean, here you got all these guitars. What even are these guitars? I don't think any of them are mine, actually. I think. Oh my gosh, whose guitar is that? I don't even know how we got this guitar. I don't remember whose it is even. This black and blue one. I don't remember whose guitar that was. I feel like it's somebody older than me. Like from high school. I feel like maybe it's somebody's brother's guitar or something. Can't remember. But anyways, yeah, I guess it's probably a better space. Got this couch. Let's go weiter. So, yeah, Daf Memches. Pretty cool daf, I think. I guess you'll let me know afterwards, but separating water of, so more like tchumi kind of thing. So what do you do if you have like two bodies of water that kind of meet in the middle? The thing is, you got to make sure that the water that you're having isn't coming from like a different tchum. So what do you do? So that comes up at the beginning, and then the source for dalet amos for carrying. Isn't that kind of insane? Like, if I understand this correctly, it's basically the source for the dalet amos of like carrying stuff on Shabbos. Like, we literally learned, what was it, 157 pages of Masechta Shabbos and all that Hotzah and all that kind of stuff, and then 48 pages of Ayruvin. It sounds like we're like finally seeing the source for Dalet Amos. And then finally at the end we talk a little bit about those like chatzers that Reb Shimon's talking about, that they kind of like share in the middle, and then they do errors with the outer ones. So we're going to see a machlokas about that as well. Chevra, let's get started. On Daf Mem Zayin Amud Beis, all the way at the bottom, well, 2 lines from the bottom. Tani Reb Chia, Cherem shebein tchumei Shabbos tzarich mechitza shel pais la'afsiko. So says Reb Chia that if you have, so you basically have two like cities or towns or whatever, and they're divided by like a body of water. Okay, so now, so let's just say that there's 4,000 amos of water between the two cities. So you have to make a divider between the two tchums so that none of the water gets between the two. Because if some water gets between, well, then it's coming from outside the tchum and you can't drink it. So it says Reb Chia, if you have like some kind of a net between these two tchums, so tzarich mechitza shel pais la'afsiko, you should have to make it a iron divider, okay, so that none of the water goes from one side to the other. Mechayich ale Reb Yosef bar Chanina laughed at him. Oy vavoy. My time come Mechayich. Now the Gemara wants to know, how come Reb Yosef bar Chanina was laughing at Reb Chia? Like, what did he do that deserved him to like be laughed at? So if you say because, well, what's his water? This water is chefze hefker, okay? This water is ownerless, and therefore clearly Reb Chia is being machmir like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, okay? Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says a chefze hefker konen shvisa, and therefore applying the halachas of tchum to this water. Now that is going to be more machmir, because there are Rabbanan who would say that chefze hefker are not konen shvisa, and therefore it's just like kiragli kol adam, whoever takes it. Well, in that case, then it's more makel. You don't have to worry about like making walls and dividing between bodies of water and stuff. Just whoever takes it will be able to drink it. So if it's because Reb Chia holds that chefze hefker are konen shvisa, and he's holding like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and in this case it's more machmir, and Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina holds like the chachamim, who say that it would just be kiragli kol adam, that whoever takes the water could drink it, and carry it however far they can go. So he's being more makel. Well, but what? Just because Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina is more lenient, holds like the more lenient opinion, therefore he has to laugh at somebody who holds like a more stringent opinion. I mean, that's not very nice. Just because somebody holds more stringently than you doesn't mean you have to laugh at him. So, even though I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing at Rabbi Chia, I'm laughing because I think it's funny that we have to teach manners like that. So rather, the reason why Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina was laughing was because, after all, we have this pretty clear halacha, which is that Naharus HaMoshchin, that rivers that are flowing, Umayonos HaNovin, and springs that are, I guess, also flowing, Harein Kiragli Kol Adam, so they are Kiragli Kol Adam. So it's pretty clear that these bodies of water would not be Konesh Visa, they would be like Kiragli Kol Adam. So that is why Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina was laughing at Rabbi Chia, because Rabbi Chia was forgetting about this obvious halacha. But maybe this wasn't Neharos HaMoshchin Umayanos HaNovin. Maybe this wasn't a flowing body of water. Maybe this was just maybe this was water that was gathered. In which case, that halacha wouldn't apply. The idea of like Mayanos HaMoshchin being Kiragli Kol Adam, and therefore Tchum would apply, and therefore Rabbi Chia was right to apply the halachos of Tchum Shabbos. So Ela Mishum the Katani Tzarich Mechitza Shal Barzel Afsiko. So no, rather the reason why Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina was laughing at Rabbi Chia was because Rabbi Chia was being very dramatic. He was saying you need a wall of iron in order to divide between these two tchums, the water on the two sides of the tchum. But no, Umayishna Kanim Dilo. Rabbi Chia, what's the problem with using just reeds? What, the Ailibu Umaya? What, because water is going to get through the reeds? Who are we kidding? Shobarzel Nami, Ailubu Maya. No, Rabbi Chia, what, you think just because you make a fancy iron divider, no water is going to get through? Of course water is going to get through. It's very silly of you to think that just you're going to make a iron divider and no water is going to get through. V'dilma tzarich ve'en l'takana kamer. But maybe Rabbi Chia was exaggerating, meaning Rabbi Chia wasn't saying that you should actually make a wall of bars of iron, because you're right. Water is going to get through even if it's an iron wall. What Rabbi Chia was saying is that you can't actually make a divider between these two parts of the water, because water is going to get through. He was kind of exaggerating. He's saying, if you think that in order to divide up between these two parts of water, you're going to have mechitza shel barzel, an iron wall, keilu, a wall that nothing can get through. But since that's impossible, basically the point is that you can't actually effectively divide between these two parts of water. So, if that's the case, then again, why is Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina laughing at Rabbi Chia? Maybe he was just saying that basically you can't divide between these two parts. So, Ella, you know why Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina was laughing? Mishum tekalu shekelu chacham b'mayim, because everybody knows that we're dafka more makel when it comes to walls for water. Kid Rabbi Tavla, Rabbi Tavla asked from Rav, if you have a wall, we've seen this before, I think even twice, at least. So if you good achis, right? If you have a wall that goes downwards, so we want to know if you have if you have a building that fell down, there's part of a wall that is going, it's 10 tfachim, and you want to know, can we consider it goes down to the ground? Amarle and Rav said, that a wall going downwards, to say good asik when there's more than 3 tfachim, right? More than that a gedi, that a goat can get through. So then we cannot say good achis. However, unless it's by water, as we saw in Masechta Shabbos, I think on Daf Kuf Aleph, that if you have a wall that's 10 tfachim tall, that's 10 tfachim, and you kind of hang it over the water, we can consider it like the wall goes down, even though it's not even touching the water. And then I think it was in the context that you'd be able to draw water out of the river, of the sea, and I guess have water in your boat, because it's considered like you're getting it from Rosh Hashanah, not from the sea, which is a carmelis. So we see that when it comes to mechitzas, we're dafka more mekel when it comes to mechitzas and water. So kalu shekelu chacham b'mayim, this is a kula that the chacham made when it comes to water. And therefore, what Rabbi Chanina was laughing about was that because we're more mekel when it comes to walls and water, well then, it doesn't matter if water can get through the wall. we're more makel when it comes to walls and water anyways, and even just like a regular net that's dividing between these two bodies of water, even though water can get through, it'll be enough for it to be considered an effective partition. That's why Rabbi Yosef B'chinan was laughing. Says the Gemara, ein lo ela arba v'chulei. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri had said that if you have a fellow and he's sleeping when Shabbos begins, then he wakes up and it's Shabbos. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, look, he can still walk 2,000 amos in any direction. Chacham said he can only walk 4 amos. Rabbi Eliezer had said that, he's considered like he's in the middle of the 4 amos, he can walk 2 amos in any direction. Rabbi Yehuda had then said that he could walk 4, he can choose one direction and walk 4 amos in that direction, and that's it. So now the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda anu Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda is saying the same thing as the Tanakama. The Tanakama says he gets 4 amos. Rabbi Yehuda says he gets 4 amos. So what's the difference? So Amar Rava, Shmona al Shmona Kibenayu. So Rava says that the nafkamina is 8, is an area of 8 by 8. That according to the Tanakama, you don't just have 4 amos, you actually have 4 amos in either direction. So you can walk 4 amos to the east, 4 amos to the west. Wow, mamish, it's key that you can walk wherever you want already. Kidding. It's still pretty small. But, so according to Tanakama, let's start with Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can literally choose one direction and walk 4 amos. That's it. That's what you're allowed. Whereas according to the Tanakama, you can walk 4 amos in any direction. So, essentially then you can walk in an area that is 8 amos by 8 amos. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says you can only walk a total of 4 amos. We also learn in the Brisa, Yesh lo shmona al shmona divrei Reb Meir. The Reb Meir says, and I guess the assumption is, it's not Mishnah Reb Meir, that it's Reb Meir's opinion, who's the Tanakama, and we're seeing here that we have a Brisa in which Reb Meir says that you have 8 amos by 8 amos to walk. Okay? Fine. So that's enough. Rabbi Yehuda would say 4 tvachim, 4 amos. Rabbi Meir would say you have 8 amos by 8 amos. Ve'amar Rava, says Rava, machlokes lahalech, aval atalta divrei kol arba amos in tfelo. Now says Rava that of course when Rabbi Meir says that you can walk 8 amos by 8 amos in an area 8 amos by 8 amos, that of course is only to walk. You would not be allowed to carry in the middle of nowhere 8 amos by 8 amos, because obviously the halacha there is daled amos, as we know, right? Carrying something 4 amos in Rosh Hashanah is a problem. Right? That's the maximum. So, v'hani daled amos heichik siva. Where are these daled amos written in the Torah? So where do we have the precedent for these 4 amos in the Torah, right? So so the way I understand, if I understand correctly, it's talking about where's the source, midoraisa, for carrying something 4 amos in Rosh Hashanah. Okay. So Kedatani is we learn in the Brisa shvu ish tachtav, that everybody needs to sit under themselves. Okay, kitachtav, like under themselves. V'chama tachtav, how much is under yourself? So gufo shalosh amos. Well, a person's body, the assumption is that a person's body is 3 amos. Ve'ama kidei livshot yadav v'raglav divrei Reb Meir. And Reb Meir says then you get an additional amma to, I guess, extend your hands and feet as far as you can go. And I guess on average that would be 4 amos. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says Rabbi Yehuda gufo shalosh amos. Okay, a person's body is 3 amos. Ve'ama kidei shito chefetz mitachas raglosav umaniach tachas ma'ashosav. And then an additional amma to be able to take something from under your feet and put it under your head. I guess some extra amos, some extra room to move around. Okay, my benai, what's an afkamini between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir? It's both 4 amos, no? So you can benai arba amos mitzutzamos. An afkamina is it exactly 4 amos or not? According to Rabbi Meir, where it's 3 amos plus how far you can extend your arms and legs, well then it'll be a little bit more than 4 amos. Whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, it was just enough, it's like pick up something from under your feet. Well then it'll be a little bit of a closer call. So I guess more like exactly 4 amos. Okay, Seder. Amli of Misharshia Livrei. Misharshia said to his son, Ki ailas l'kamid Rav Papa, when you go to Rav Papa, ba'imine, ask him the following question. Arba amos sha'amru, ba'amadida yo'avin lei, or ba'amas sha'kodesh yo'avin lei. So Misharshia said to his son, when you go to Rav Papa, ask him, when we talk about daled amos over here, is this talking about subjective or objective? Is this his daled amos, meaning we said it's based on the size of his body, right? So is it relative to the size of his personal body? Or is it, basically we take, and we assume an amma is 6 tvachim, we take a medium-sized fistful, a medium-sized tefach, and, we use that to, calculate an objective amount for 4 amos. So Imam Malach Amos Shel Kodesh Yavin Alei. So, and Mishasha continues, and he says to his son, if Rav Papa tells you that we're talking about a Amos Shel Kodesh, basically an objective, right, with the Amma that's written in the Torah, meaning an objective Amma, 6 tefachim, each tefach being, a medium-sized tefach, so basically an objective amount. So, Og Melech HaBashan Matei Olav. What do you do if you have Og Melech HaBashan? What do you do if you have a giant? He himself, he won't be able to fit into an objective area of 4 amas. And if a papa answers that it's a subjective amma, dalet amas, that basically, bigger people get a larger space and smaller people get a smaller space, well then say to Rav Papa, my time katani lagabe yeshamu akol lefi mashu adam. Then why is this not listed with the was it a Mishnah that we had learned on Daf Lamed Amud Beis, that there are certain things that are relative. For example, mlo lugmav, right? If you drink a cheek's worth on Yom Kippur, so then that's subjective. Some people have bigger cheeks, some people have smaller cheeks. Or for example, the Mazen Shtei Sudas for an Eruv, right? Some people eat more, some people eat less. So here also, we should also include this, right? The dalet amas that you're allowed to carry. Some people are bigger, some people are smaller. It's a subjective amount. So, he also the comment of Papa. So then when Mishash's son finally came before Rav Papa, so he asked him these questions. And Amarle, and Rav Papa says, look, Idaikinan kula hai lo ave taninan. He says, look, if you're going to be so medactic and you ask me like, hey, if it's a subjective thing, then why isn't it listed with all the other subjective things? If you're going to be so technical, you're not going to be lo ave taninan. You're not going to be able to learn anything because you're always, you're going to get tripped up too easily. Right? You can't be so technical. You have to have a little bit of space. Now, what's funny about that is that, generally in the Gemara, we are extremely technical. And if something is missing, it'll be like, how come it's not taught with it? But anyways, okay, Rav Papa says to him that you can't be so technical. Okay, better. But La'olam, Rav Papa says, nonetheless, I will answer you. The fact of the matter is, we use a subjective amma, and then with the kakashilach, and then you're going to ask, my time lo katani gabiyesha amu. Then why isn't it taught with the other subjective amounts in that Mishnah? Because actually, the amas didei, the subjective dalet amas for carrying things on Shabbos, is actually not entirely subjective, because you can have somebody who's a nanas beivarv. He's like a midget when it comes to his limbs, meaning that he's a regular, an average kind of 3 amas. However, his arms are pretty short, and therefore he's not going to actually be 4 amas. And in that case, we actually, kick in the objective amas and say that we add another amma and say that it's actually 4 amas and it's not going to be less than 4 amas. So therefore, it's not entirely subjective. So if you have Og Melech HaBashan, if you have a giant, yeah, his dalet amas are going to be bigger. But there is sort of a minimum of 4 objective amas. So therefore, it wouldn't be listed together with the other subjective things in that Mishnah. Okay, so the Mishnah had said that if you have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, and they're, each kind of like Reuven overlaps with Shimon into 2 of Shimon's amas, and then Levi also overlaps with Shimon into 2 of Shimon's amas. So then Shimon is entirely sharing his 4 amas with other people, with Reuven and Levi, but Reuven gets his own exclusive 2 amas, and Levi gets his own exclusive 2 amas. And then Reb Shimon chimed in and said, oh, this is, by the way, just like when you have 3 chatzeros that are next to each other, and the outer ones make an eruv with the inner one, but they don't make an chatzer with each other, right? So the Gemara says, how come Reb Shimon had to say, oh, you know what this is similar to? It's similar to a chatzer. What, like, every single time the Mishnah says something, do we just like bring in, oh, you know what this is like? No, why all of a sudden is Reb Shimon saying, oh, this, by the way, is like when you have 3 chatzers? So Achi Kamadu, Reb Shimon the Rabbanan. This is what Reb Shimon is saying to the Rabbanan. He says, you know what this is like? When you have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, and Shimon entirely shares his space with Reuven and Levi, but Reuven and Levi don't make a don't share it with each other, and therefore they can't carry from one to the other. Says Reb Shimon, that's the exact same thing as when you have chatzeris. And therefore, Michdei, L'mada V'doma, the Shalosh Chatzeris, Apsuchas Zolazo, Apsuchas Rishus Harabim, right? This case of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi is similar to when you have three chatzeris that are open to each other, and they're also open to Rishus Harabim, so they're not dependent on each other whatsoever. How come you argue with me when it comes to the chatzeris and say that you cannot carry between them, and yet, right? So over there you argue with me, and yet Chacham, you have no problem saying over here that Reuven and Levi will be able to share with Shimon. Yet when it comes to the chatzeris, you say no way, nobody can carry between them. Shouldn't it be the exact same case? So for Rabbanan, the rabbis answer, no, they're not the exact same case. The difference is that in the case of the chatzers, there's a lot of people living in those chatzers. Each chatzer has at least 2 houses, right? If not more. And therefore, we're talking about lots of people. And inevitably, somebody is going to carry where they shouldn't be carrying. Somebody from Chatzer A is going to carry to Chatzer C. And that's going to be a problem. Whereas over here, it's Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. They can be, there's less variables. They can be more careful to make sure that Reuven doesn't carry into Levi's space. Okay, fine. And then continuing on the case of these 3 chatzers. Remember, so let's just review. What are these 3 chatzers? So you have Chatzer A, B, and C, okay? And each Chatzer has, multiple houses in them, at least 2 houses. And, they have their own entranceway or exit into Rishus Harabim. So therefore, it's not like you have to pass through any of the other Chatzers to get to Rishus Harabim. Each one is completely self-sufficient, but they're all open into each other. And they individually had done Ayruvin Chatzeris. So Chatzer A had done Ayruvin Chatzeris, Chatzer B had done their own Ayruvin Chatzeris, Chatzer C did their own Ayruvin Chatzeris. So you can carry in each of those Chatzers individually, because they did their own Ayruvin Chatzeris. The question is, can you carry between them? So the answer is no, unless they make an Ayruvin Chatzeris. And what they did was, Chatzer A made an Ayruvin Chatzeris with Chatzer B, and also Chatzer C made an Ayruvin Chatzeris with Chatzer B. But Chatzer A and Chatzer C did not make an Ayruvin Chatzeris with each other. So we say, look, Chatzer A and Chatzer C can both carry into Chatzer B, but not, from A to C and not from C to A. Fine. That's the case that we're talking about. Now the Gemara asks, Ve'amai, how come Chatzer A cannot carry to Chatzer C? Once the, let's say Chatzer C joins together with Chatzer B, well then Chatzer B and C now become one unit, one entity. Well then Havilu Chada. And then when Chatzer B and C as an entity then make an Eruv with Chatzer A, well then it's now one 3-part entity. So all of them merged into one joint entity. So why can't you carry from A to C? After all, they should, right? If you have, 2 companies that join together, then they join together with another company, it's all just one big company. So here also, it should also just be one big Chatzer. So I'm Rav Yehuda, so here we have machlokes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Sheshes. So I'm Rav Yehuda, kagon shenasna emtzais eruva bezo veruva bezo. Interesting. So Rav Yehuda says, well, it's not talking about where A made an Eruv with B and C made an Eruv with B. Rather, B made an Eruv with A and with C. What does this mean? It means that basically, how would you make an Eruv between 2 Chatzers, right? So let's just take Chatzer A and Chatzer B for a second. So Chatzer A has 2 houses in it, let's say, and they made their own Eruv Chatzer. So you can carry in Chatzer A. Right? Chatzer A can carry in their own Chatzer. Chatzer B has 2 houses that open into it, and they made their own Eruv Chatzeris, and so therefore they can carry in Chatzer B as well. But you cannot carry from Chatzer A to Chatzer B. What if you want to carry from Chatzer A to Chatzer B? So what you do is you take the Eruv, let's say from Chatzer A, and you put it in one of the houses in Chatzer B. And by doing that, it's like everybody's together in Chatzer B, and now everybody can carry in Chatzer B, and I guess Chatzer A as well. Everybody all joins together. So what Rav Yehuda is saying is that instead of Chatzer A taking their Eruv and putting it in Chatzer B, and Chatzer C taking their Eruv and putting it in Chatzer B, in which case they're all kind of joining together in Chatzer B, and yeah, theoretically you would be able to now carry between A and C. So instead, however, I guess technically the question would be that once Chatzer A puts their thing in Chatzer B and joins together with Chatzer B, and then they then join together with Chatzer C. When Chatzer C puts their thing in Chatzer B, then they're all becoming one. But Rav Yehuda says what actually happens here, is that actually, I guess Chatzer B maybe like divided their Eruv in half or something, and then put part of it in Chatzar A, and then that's how they joined together with Chatzar A. Then they took the other part and put it in Chatzar C, and that's how they joined together with Chatzar C. So instead of like Ki'ilu Chatzar A and Chatzar C joining together in Chatzar B kind of spread outward to A and C, but so it's not like A and C are kind of coming together. It's more like Chatzar B is kind of going outward to them. So therefore, that's why you cannot carry from A to C. Rav Sheshes Amar says, Rav Sheshes afilu tema nasnu shenasnu Ayruvin be'emtzais. Sheshes says you can even say that A and C both put their Eruv into Chatzar B. However, Kigon shenisanu bishnei batim, but they put it into two different houses in Chatzar B, and because Chatzar A and Chatzar C put their Eruv into two different houses in Chatzar B, so then they are not considered to be together, and you cannot carry from Chatzar A to Chatzar C. Come on, Beis Shammai. Then the Gemara says, 1 second, who's that like? Like Beis Shammai, the Tanya, as we learn in the Brayso, Chamisha shegavu es Ayruvin. If you have 5, let's say at a Chatzar that there are 5 houses in the Chatzar, and they collected food from everybody, Nisanu b'shnei kelim, and they put it in one house, but they put it into 2 different vessels in that one house. Beis Shammai omrim ein Ayruvin eruv. Beis Shammai says that it's not a good eruv. Beis Hillel omrim Ayruvin eruv. Beis Hillel says it would be a good eruv. So what do we see? We see that if you take, that according to Beis Shammai, if you would take the eruv from the 5 houses and put them into 2 different kelim, so then it would not be a good eruv, and you wouldn't be able to carry. So here also, if you have the eruv from Chatzar A and from Chatzar C, and you put into 2 different houses in Chatzar B, it wouldn't be a good eruv, and you wouldn't be able to carry from Chatzar A to Chatzar C. Fine. Now the Gemara says you can actually even say that Beis Hillel would also agree that in this case you would not be able to carry from A to C. Beis Hillel, you can even say that Beis Hillel would also agree. When Beis Hillel says that when you have 5 houses in a Chatzar and they collect the food and put it in 2 different kelim, but it was still in the same house. That's why Beis Hillel says that it would be an acceptable eruv. But if, it would be in 2 separate houses, then even Beis Hillel would agree that it's not a good eruv. And here, Chatzar A and Chatzar C are putting it into 2 different houses in Chatzar B, and therefore, it is not going to be a good eruv, even according to, Beis Hillel, and, you would not be able to carry from Chatzar A to Chatzar C. Rav Acha bre Rav Avya le Rav Ashi. Says Rav Acha bre Rav Avya to Rav Ashi. Rav Yehuda kasha, Rav Sheshes kasha. Says Rav Acha bre Rav Avya to Rav Ashi. He says, look, Rav Yehuda's opinion is not going to work, and Rav Shesh's opinion is also not going to work. Rav Yehuda kasha. So Rav Yehuda, his opinion is not going to work, meaning his reason why you would be unable to carry from Chatzar A to Chatzar C is not a good reason. The Amar, the Rav Yehuda said, Kigon shenasna emtzais eruva bazeh ve'eruva bazeh. That the Chatzar B put its eruv in Chatzar A as well as into Chatzar C, and that is why Chatzar A cannot carry to Chatzar C. So v'cheven the erva emtzais ba'adei chitzona, that once Chatzar B, let's say, already made the eruv with Chatzar C, well then it would be 1 unit. V'chihadra ve'erva ba'adei idach, when then Chatzar B and Chatzar C as 1 unit then made a eruv with Chatzar A, well then Shlichus Avda. No, Chatzar B and Chatzar C are representing the joint entity when they then make an eruv with Chatzar A, and therefore they should all be considered one big entity, and you should be able to carry from A to C. Well, Rav Shesh's kasha, and also according to Rav Shesh's, is going to be a question because of the opposite. You shouldn't be able to carry at all in Chatzar B. No, according to Rav Shesh's, who says that it's talking about where Chatzar A and Chatzar C both put their eruv in Chatzar B, but in 2 different houses, well then you shouldn't be able to carry at all in Chatzar B, because it should be like 5 houses that were in one Chatzar, and one of the houses did not join into the eruv. Now nobody can carry in that Chatzar. One house forgot, now nobody can carry in the Chatzar. So here also, right, it should be like a situation where you have, right, and we say that over there, even if then, like after the fact, the one person who didn't join would make an eruv together with like one of the other people, it wouldn't work, right? Meaning you would have to have everybody joining together in one eruv. And here also, so if you have Chatzar A and Chatzar C each put in the Eruv in Chatzar B, but if they're in different houses, well then nobody's going to be able to carry at all in Chatzar B, because they're not actually joining together. Just like when you have 5 people in a Chatzar and one person doesn't join together with everybody else, well then you can't carry in the Chatzar at all. So, so according to Rav Sheshes, not only would you not be allowed to carry from A to C, you wouldn't be able to carry in Chatzar B whatsoever. So now says Rav Ashi to Rav Achaber to Rav Avya, Lo Rav Yehuda kasha, v'lo Rav Sheshes kasha. There's no questions on Rav Yehuda, and there's no questions on Rav Sheshes. Rav Yehuda lo kasha, according to Rav Yehuda, it's not a question, because Kaven de Erva la emtzois ba de chitzona, because once Chatzar B made an Eruv with Chatzar C, Vishtayim chitzonos Bahade Adadi lo ervu, and Chatzar A and Chatzar C specifically did not make an Eruv with each other. Well, then it's clear that Chatzar A and Chatzar C intended to make an Eruv with Chatzar B, and they're not interested in making an Eruv with each other. Because if they were, they would have just made an Eruv with each other. So therefore, according to Rav Yehuda, don't say that once Chatzar B and Chatzar C join together, then when they join with A, it's all one. No, it's not all one. If they wanted to all to come together, they would have all to come together. From the fact that they only made an Eruv with the middle one, but not with each other, means that they weren't intending to make an Eruv with each other. So that is why you cannot carry from A to C and vice versa. Well, Rav Sheshes, and according to Rav Sheshes, who says that they both, Chatzar A and Chatzar C, put their Eruv in Chatzar B, but in 2 different houses, also you can carry in Chatzar B, but just not from A to C, because lo kasha, im amru diurin la'akel, yomu diurin la'achmir. No, this whole idea of being able to take a Chatzar from A and putting it in B is to make things easier, is to make it cooler, to be able to carry from A to B. Now you're going to say because you put it in 2 different houses, now you can't carry at all. I mean, what's the point of making it cooler that ends up being a chumrah? So clearly we're not going to say that since they put it in 2 different houses, you're not going to be able to carry it all in Chatzar B. Of course you're going to be able to carry in Chatzar B, but you're not going to be able to carry from A to C because they didn't make an Eruv with each other. Well, because they didn't put it all in one house, they put it in 2 separate houses. Fine. Chaver, that was Daf Mem Ches of Masechta Ayruvin. So at the beginning of the Daf, we talked about separating water that is in the middle of 2 tehums. So Rav Chia said you have to put up a wall of iron. Rav Yosef Rav Chia says no, a simple net in the middle that's 10 tefachim would be fine because we're more maker when it comes to water. We learned about the source of Dalet Amos for carrying. It has to do with the size of somebody's body. Rav Meir says it's basically 3 amos of your body plus extending your hands and feet. Rav Yehuda says it's the 3 amos of your body plus the amount of space you would need to pick up something from under your feet and put it under your head. The nafkamina is that Rav Yehuda is going to be pretty much exactly 4 amos, whereas Rav Meir is going to say you have a little bit more. And then at the end we talked about how come you're able to carry from Chatzar A and Chatzar C into Chatzar B, but not from A to C. We have Machlokes in Rav Yehuda and Rav Sheshes. Rav Yehuda says because it's talking about where Chatzar B kind of split their Eruv between A and C, and Rav Sheshes says it's talking about where actually you can even say that Chatzar A and Chatzar C put their Eruv in Chatzar B, but in 2 different houses, therefore you can't carry from A to C. Chava, that was Daf Mem Ches. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.